Good morning, and thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Roundtable Talk Show. I am your host, Sharifa Hardy, and do I have an amazing show for you today? We took a vote before this show, and we decided all the men were going to have backdrops, and the women are just going to be themselves. Actually, I just made that up, but hey, we have some great backdrops for you today. I'm going to introduce you to all our guests, wonderful people. I definitely invite you to support our guests, to share the show, and to be a part of the Roundtable community. Our first guest is Jeffrey Palter. Jeffrey is an action sports retailer. He is a serial entrepreneur, and he's also into business development. And what a lovely backdrop he has. Good morning, Jeffrey. How are you?
Good morning, Sharif. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on the show.
You are so welcome. Thank you. Ride bikes, have fun, feel good. I love it. How did you come up with that?
Truth be told, one of my vendors, Trek Bicycle Corporation from Wisconsin, they put out an interesting email yesterday with dozens of backdrops to help promote cycling as a simple solution for many of the issues that we're dealing with these days. But I'm sure we'll talk about that more. But they came up with it, and I thought it was pretty cool. So I figured I would drop it in there.
I love it. I think it's pretty cool as well. The little dog on the bike, he has somewhere to be. I love it. Our next guest is Kerin. He is a CORE Executive Roundtable through CORE Networking, and he reduced readmission fines for medical facilities. Good morning, Tim. How are you?
Good morning. Very good, Sharifa. Thank you for having me on today.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining us. And we wanted to go ahead and mention, we're going to talk a little bit about your backdrop. Tell us about your backdrop.
Yeah, my backdrop is we own a villa in Costa Rica, so this is the view from my balcony.
Oh,
it's a beautiful place. If anybody else hasn't been there, it's a beautiful place to visit.
I love it. I have to come and check it out. Maybe I'll stay in your little villa.
Yeah.
Dr. Jesse Bollinger, you are here with us this morning. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. And you are a believer in rural communities. I saw that and I was like, okay, this is going to be interesting. But you also work with nonprofits and business consulting with your wife, and you're also legally blind. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, good morning. I'm glad to be here. This is great. Good group.
I love it. Now tell us what's going on behind you.
So behind me is our historic restored depot in Uptown Creston that was built in the 1800s, and it was slated for demolition, if I understand correctly, I think in the 70s or 80s. They were going to actually tear it down, and a group of people got together and renovated it into our city hall. And then last year, I believe it was, Amtrak actually started using it as a working depot again. So if you come in and out of Creston on Amtrak, you'll come through the downstairs part of the depot. We also have, if anybody ever happens to do that, down the hallway where the restrooms are, we have a doll collection of first ladies and the presidents that's on display.
Wow, I think that's very interesting. Well, thank you for joining us. And we have our next guest, Joyce Shulman. And Joyce is a community leader. She's a part of 99 Walks community. And her plan, her desire is to help people inspire and bring happiness to other people. Good morning, Joyce. How are you?
Good morning. I'm very well. Thanks for having me on today.
Tell us a little bit about your backdrop. No, I'm just kidding.
So this is my living room because I'm currently working from home.
I think all of us are. I mean, we're quarantined, we're in the house, and I was reading a meme this morning and it said, we're not stuck at home, we're safe at home. So everything is in our perspective. So I wanted to start with you, Jeffrey. The main question or conversation that we've been having, and everyone feel free to go wherever you like, but how has COVID-19 affected you? How has it affected your business during this time? Tell us a little bit about what you do and how it's been affected.
So I own a cycling store, bicycle retail store, for the last 15 years. And it's about a 45-year-old brand in our local area here in Massachusetts. And interestingly, a side effect of this COVID situation is our first quarter was tremendous, tremendously vibrant, and kids bikes and lots of stuff. But we've gone through different phases of locking down the store, from social distancing, minimum people in the store, to, for the past couple of weeks, doors locked and everything over the phone with what I call concierge, curbside concierge service. So you call into the store, if you need a bike to be serviced, we'll come out and get it. We'll bring it inside, it'll get serviced, and then we'll bring it back out to you. Same thing with products. So for the first quarter, everything was rosy. The industry is happy with it. Unintended side effect of this terrible situation. And now we're going to start seeing the decline in business over the next 90 days, I think, because the effects of financial hardships are going to start to manifest, and it's going to be very, very difficult to work the same as we have been, because of the inefficient manner of doing it the way that we're doing it, just through closed doors. So we are doing our best to promote cycling. We are considered an essential business in Massachusetts, as in many states in the country, for transportation, for some essential workers using that, some people avoiding public transportation using bicycles. And then I think the interesting part about it is the kids and families and people bringing bikes out of the barn that they haven't ridden in ages, just to get outside and get some exercise, where running or walking isn't really going to be conducive, especially for kids. I think it's been a big blessing for them. So that's where we are right now, and it's a week by week situation is what's happening.
You know, it's interesting. It's interesting, Jeffrey. I had a meeting this morning with a client, and as part of that meeting, we had a elementary/high school principal on, and Iowa has gone to some distance learning from the public schools, and a lot of the private schools have done it. And one of his concerns really was kind of the physical activity side of things. And the gentleman that's actually my client very quickly spoke up and mentioned, that was the first thing he mentioned, was getting outside and biking, and that was his highlight, was his son getting the training wheels off his bicycle. So yeah, definitely having that.
Yeah, we are hearing some stories of people with their kids that are just going a little bit stir crazy inside, and they're speeding along that process of going from training wheels to two wheels, because they're so excited, and it's the only thing they can do outside, because you can't go and have your 4, 5, 7-year-old go for a run. That just doesn't, that's not really a thing.
Right.
Well, you can have them go for a walk, which is what we're all about. But I will say, in my neighborhood, there are just groups of families out walking and biking nonstop. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
I think that's the aspect of, like you mentioned, the stir crazy. People are inside, they're looking for ways to get out. But also, one of the things that I've been discussing on the show, guests have been talking about different, like the how-to movement is going crazy, because people want to know how to do this, how to do that, learning new skills, learning new languages. And I'm pretty sure riding bikes is something that people would love to learn how to do at this time.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Jeff, do you think anything's going to change? I mean, are you going to have to change the way you do business and having a retail shop moving forward?
You know, I think that there's going to be a couple things going on. We're preparing to do business this way for the next, conservatively, 90, if not, go from, say, could be all the way out to 5 months this way with no customers in the store, which I think is going to lead to more Zoom stuff and FaceTime and that type of thing. But I think it's also going to lead to customer expectation changing is one of the biggest things that's going to have to change. And the reliance on the technology that we have online, reviews, product description, because it's just not possible to shop the same way, 1 foot close to someone and interact. So I think those are the short-term things that are going to happen. But I think long-term, I'm hopeful that it will come back to some new normalcy. But some people may not want to ever, I mean, not ever, but maybe a year or 18 months, come back. So I'm not exactly sure how it's going to go, but we are preparing to do business this way for the foreseeable future. I just hope that we're able to stay on and that everybody in the chain, from rent to vendors to everybody, is going to be accommodating during this time, because we don't even really realize the financial effects. But again, to be positive about it, everybody's getting outside, and here in Massachusetts, the weather is coming, and so it's going to get a lot more people outside, which is the positive of it.
Yes. From a marketing perspective, it would seem like the ideal time to suggest or recommend some type of bike-a-thon, or something where the community gets together but not too close and go on the bike trail.
Yeah, well, that's a tough one, because there's a lot of conflicting. There's some graphics been out there lately of these, even for walking and running, with what happens to your breath when someone is behind you or to the side of you. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, it's very inconclusive. One of the positive things I will tell you is I believe that from a city planning perspective, that more and more cities will be allocating funds, mm-hmm. and that the bike as elementary transportation will be elevated in that respect. And God forbid this happens again, that people will know ahead of time that bicycle is a realistic form of transportation, and not necessarily public transportation, which is going to really, unfortunately, come back slowly.
One of the things, I spent the last 7 years almost living in the poorest county in Iowa, Decatur County, before we returned to Creston last year. And one of the things that Lamoni, where we lived, had was a trails commission. And that group was geared towards developing a pretty good sized walking and biking trail. And I think Creston and a lot of rural communities are working towards that. And I talked with our mayor this morning. We had coffee via Zoom, a group of us with our county development group, and that was kind of one of his things was, hey, this is going to cause, at least how I took it was, this is going to cause the city to look at a lot of different things, that whether it be trails or sidewalks or possibly even street improvements to make things more walkable. And I think walkability is going to really hit a lot of conversations, especially in smaller towns now, because of people, walking or biking to work, because it's definitely going to start some trends. Tim, this could be, or Jeffrey, sorry, this could be really good for you in the long term. And even to get on social media and talk about biking could be a huge boost for you, for folks like you.
Yeah, it's been honestly a very interesting thing to navigate on how much to, push a message of shopping during this time. Mm-hmm. And some of our vendors have missed their spring promotion, and some went forward with it, but it really fell on deaf ears because we were in the intense, part in the last, 2-3 weeks. So it's been a little bit of a challenge on what message to put out there.
Right. Could you sort of focus, don't you think, on more on an educational component, educate people why exercising and biking is so good for you, especially at this time?
I think for sure. And there's this other conflicting message of it's got to be, alone. And then you've got families that want to ride together, and the messaging and the information is just, it's not conclusive how quote unquote safe you can actually ride a bike in a social distanced protocol. So I hear that, and it seems like a very delicate balance, to do.
We're out promoting walking and the benefits for mind, body, and mood of walking as well, and running into some of those same concerns and questions and all of those same topics. But in my opinion, I'm the daughter of a coach, right? So I was raised around movement is everything. Movement fixes most things. I do think that we still have to keep encouraging people to get out and keep moving. I think we just can't shy away from that, because the emotional and mental consequences of not doing that would be extraordinary. You know, if we end up raising up a generation of kids who are afraid to get out and move because something might be floating around the air, I just think we have to be careful about that messaging too. It's definitely a delicate balance.
I agree. Let's talk about 99 Walks community, Joyce. Tell us a little bit about that, how long it's been around, and what impact has it had during this time?
Truly, thank you for that. Just extraordinary. So 99 Walks is an app-based company. We offer monthly walking challenges focused on women. Sorry, guys. But that's really our core cohort. And our message and our mission is to get 1 million women walking. So we do that through a whole host of different tools, and the app has walking classes and walking meditations, and as I said, monthly challenges. And really what we're seeing is that people are using walking in much, I'm sure, the same way some people are using biking, but walking is accessible for people who can't bike, either because they don't know how, whatever their circumstances, right? But we're all meant and built to walk and move. And what we're seeing right now, far beyond the physical benefits of walking, which are extraordinary, are the mental and emotional benefits. Really just, gosh, we all need it so much right now. And my last thought on this is, one of the challenges that we face as people, I think, is when you need it most is when you feel like doing it least.
And when did you launch 99 Walks?
We initially launched in kind of a beta last July, and our full launch was October of this year. So kind of crazy timing around this.
Right. That's why I think that was very important to point out. So even though your launch was effectively in October, what are some of the things that you've seen post COVID-19? Have you seen a drop in people wanting to walk? Have you seen an increase in people wanting to walk?
From a business standpoint, we have seen a pretty astounding increase in business.
I can imagine.
Yeah. And the sense of community that's coming out of it. It's such an interesting time, right? Because we're all alone, but we're in it together. So you have this very strange dichotomy of we're all dealing with our own stuff, but you know that the people in your cohort, the people in your social circle, and for us in 99 Walks, the people in the 99 Walks community, we're all in it at the same time. It's such an interesting thing.
You know, it's interesting for me, Joyce, you know, from a mental health standpoint, and when I look at mental health, I think about quality of life, happiness, things of this nature. You mentioned the wanting to do it the least, you know, that kind of thing. I walk all the time. I can't drive. We have public transit, but I often choose not to use it. And now that we're at home, you know, I'm stir crazy like everybody, but for some reason, just don't want to get outside. You know, it's interesting. This whole thing's really affected people, and but I do think once things return to normal, we'll have an uptick in people walking, and we are all in this together, and it's just a matter of everybody connecting and sharing their struggles and their ideas. And I think people are having trouble. I know I've had trouble expressing my thoughts and feelings and even advice on different things, because this has been such a transition.
Jesse, I'm curious, why is it you're finding that you're less inclined to go out and walk right now?
You know, I wish I knew. I've really struggled with it. I think it's because, and I've talked to others that have had this same issue, for some reason, sleep patterns have been different. So my days starting later in some cases, and adjusting to, with clients, we've had to adjust to a lot of projects. And that's taken a lot of extra time. And so for some reason, the time that I would normally spend walking to solve a problem, just to think, has been spent at the computer, doing research or lots of Zoom meetings that maybe otherwise would have been at maybe a conversation outside.
You don't need me to tell you that that's not great for you, right?
No, it's terrible. It's terrible. It's absolutely horrible. And, I don't like it. It's definitely something that I think a lot of people are struggling with in our community right now.
I agree with Dr. Jesse. And I think for a lot of people, it's just this mental image. Like I tell people, for me, I'm a recluse. I'm one of those people who's used to working from home. I'm always at home. That's where I prefer to be. And it's been that way for years. And so my life pretty much is the same until I walk out the front door. So when I go out the door and I see all the people walking by with masks, my one thought is, I got to get home. Let me just get home and kind of block out this world. So have you changed your messaging in terms of encouraging people to get out, even though they may not actually feel like walking?
Not really, honestly, because a body in motion stays in motion, a body at rest stays at rest. And by and large, the message is always, you need to get out and move your body, whether you feel like it or not, because invariably what happens, and this is the same thing with biking, I'm sure you see this experience, because it's really any kind of exercise. Once you start moving, you suddenly realize how much better you feel and how much you missed it. You can't sit and wait till you feel like it. But to your point about leaving your house, I'm fine doing everything except going to the grocery store. Has anybody been to the grocery store this week?
Yes.
That's a freaky place, right?
Yes.
My mother went to the grocery store here, I don't know, it's probably been 2 weeks ago, and she wore a mask, and she said it was interesting because everybody stayed so far away from her, because it was before the whole wearing mask thing was the thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's the thing to do. So if you're not wearing a mask, at least around here, I think people are kind of wondering. But as somebody pointed out earlier today, if you're going to wear one, wear it properly, please.
Joyce, how are you promoting the business where you're at?
Oh gosh, a whole bunch of ways, through some earned media, via PR, advertising, word of mouth. Our background is actually in media. So 12 years ago, I founded a company called Macaroni Kid, which is a digital publishing and media company focused on families and kids. So that's the space that we know really well.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's a space that you know well as well, Tim. Tell us a little bit about CORE and what you do as a CORE executive.
Well, first, I didn't get the prerequisite that you have to be either a runner or a biker or a walker here, because I need.
That's my fault.
So. And then I own several businesses. I have a commercial cleaning company based up in Washington, D.C. area. I'm currently in Florida. And then I have a networking organization called CORE that I run in Florida. And right now, we used to meet physically. Now we're meeting virtually on Zoom. So we're doing a lot of education and trying to prepare on that. And then I run an executive roundtable group out of Washington, D.C. for CEOs. And we're on virtual with that meeting too. And that plus I have a 6,500 square foot villa in Costa Rica with the background is behind me that we rent out too. So I have several different businesses all diversified a little bit.
Which one's your favorite? Is that like asking what your favorite child is?
Oh, the one in the background. I mean, it's fun to entertain. I mean, it's fun to see people enjoy. We are doing really well. We were booked 16 straight weeks and then everything shut down. and that. And so, we have a private driver, chef, maid service. We do private tours. So it was really a fun business. I managed the whole thing. And so it was fun to manage it from the States and have a staff in Costa Rica managing it. It was fun to see people enjoying in that, which is, it's hopefully we can get back to that.
Absolutely. So, Tim, what day should I plan to arrive in Costa Rica?
I'll send you the invite.
Thank you. I need when this happens, I definitely want to travel. I want to go somewhere because even for me, I've been in the house way too much. I wanted to ask you, Tim, one of the things that I saw in Jeffrey's bio was the whole serial entrepreneur thing. As I'm sure you are a serial entrepreneur. You have all of these businesses. Did you see a preference? I know people can't go to Costa Rica, but did you change like your focus on a particular business as a result of everything that's going on?
We changed them all, and it's all been. I'm always a big believer in looking at opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
And that being in business for 30 plus years, that's where all the gray hair came in from. And that is that you end up trying to look at ways and say, okay, you know what, you're facing this, everybody's facing this. So what are the opportunities you can capitalize on this way? So as far as the example, the commercial cleaning business in Washington, D.C., we focused on doing a specialty cleaning program. So when people do come back to work, if someone is sick, or someone does cough, the other employees around the area are going to be concerned. And so we're offering a specialty service to go in and help clean those areas during the day so the employees could see physically things being done that'll give them a peace of mind to continue to work. And that with our roundtable business and our networking business, because all this is virtual, everybody's used to meeting and giving hugs and shaking hands and discussing face to face. We're training more on Zoom and how to do business virtually, how to network virtually, exactly what you're doing here today, meeting all of us and spreading the word and communicating and that type of thing. And then in Costa Rica, we've even adapted changes there already and sent out promotions that we are including a full-time housekeeper in that. So when people do fly into Costa Rica, we will take their travel laundry and wash it immediately because they've been flying on planes and at airports. And then we provide a full-time housekeeper, and the vehicle that we have will wipe the vehicle down every day on the inside. And that, so we're trying to look at opportunities to stay positive with this and try to, look at what's the perception of your client, your customer looking at, and how you can help them, have peace of mind and ease for the next, 6, 8, 10 months as we go through this.
Have you developed a specific strategy, tips, ideas, guidance that you can provide to business owners who are struggling to make the transition from offline to virtual?
Yeah, it's always still going to be about building relationships in that first and foremost. And I think that reaching out to people and solving their problem, asking them how they're doing and that, but look and see what they need and how to solve their problem. I may be calling somebody up to see if they need help with their business, but I could talk to them about walking and refer Joyce, or if they're looking for bikes, refer Jeff. So it's just more not just pushing product or service, but reaching out and saying, how can we help you? That's the biggest thing today, not pushing your product or service or your agenda, but reaching out to people. And that's what we're trying to stress on this, especially when you're doing virtual meetings.
That's interesting, because when I look at my business, we do a lot of fundraising. We've got 2 projects right now that we're fundraising for. One in particular, we're trying to turn around really quickly, but we put the fundraising on hold, and I've helped that organization, spend more time talking about what can we do primarily for kids sitting at home. It's an arts organization, so how can we get them art kits that we can have them do stuff? So we distributed those through the school, when the school did lunch pickup. We've been doing some stuff on social media and really helping meet some of these other needs. And I've seen some other businesses in our area do that. We've got a yoga studio that's been doing some online meditation and different things. Radiant Wellness here in town. And so she has spent a lot of time talking about these different things, and it's stuff she's really good at, and things that people may not think they can do. Yoga may not think they can do things virtually, but it really works well. And so this has been a good opportunity for some different things to happen.
There's a Stanford professor named Tina Selig. I don't know if any of you are familiar with her, but she focuses largely on creativity. She's written several just brilliant books. She's just brilliant. But one of the things that she preaches that's always stayed with me, that I keep coming back to these days, is creativity loves constraint. Which is just such an important idea. And right now, by the nature of things, we're constrained. And you start out by feeling like, okay, I can't do A, B, and C that I'm accustomed to doing. And yet it's forcing us to start really thinking creatively about how to be of service, how to connect, to your point, Tim, right? How to connect with our community and get bikes into the hands of people who need them, how to reimagine so many things. And while it's such an incredibly difficult time, it's also a profoundly creative time for people, because we're being forced to look at those things and think creatively. And in that respect, I don't mean to diminish how challenging this time is, but I do believe that in that respect, it's an extraordinary time. And some good is going to come out of it. It's just going to be painful to get from here to there, but some really interesting things are going to come out of this, I believe.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, because I think when people are trying to create things and look at opportunities, mentally and psychologically, it's a win. And that's what people need, is no matter what size it is, it doesn't have to be monetary. As long as it's a win, it could be something you just create or thought of. And I think that plays into a lot of everybody's, especially today, what we're facing today. Any win is a good thing. It puts a smile on everybody's face.
Yeah. Jeffrey, you're back there. We want to bring you back into the conversation. Have you seen an increase in creativity or ideas in implementing your business?
Oh, I wish we had a better grasp on some of these social media, Zoom, interactive things, even in my store. We haven't quite figured that out to be able to deal with people that way. I've done some FaceTime with a few customers in the store. It's very, very awkward and very, very strange to begin with. I'd say we're probably honestly struggling with it because we just don't have the technology right now to interact with customers in a way that some of the big online companies are doing, that they've been doing for years with chat and that whole operator thing. So I would like to say that we will. I just don't know exactly how we're going to do it, is the honest fact of the matter.
Not to be all Pollyanna about it, but isn't it exciting that you're going to figure all that out?
That's a little too Pollyanna for me, Joyce.
Look at Jeff's face. He just looks like, I don't want a headache. I don't want to think about it.
No, I mean, I'm fine. We're fine to do it. It's just that, managing, 15 people at once with trying to deal with 30 people at once. And it's like waiting tables, I'll be right with you. I'll be right with you. I'll be right with you. I can only deal with one screen at a time. And every time you touch something, whether it's their bike and you disinfect it, and then you touch your phone and then you touch your mouse, even if you're wearing gloves, you're thinking to yourself, what do I need to disinfect now? Going through this whole thing. So, to be honest with you, no, Joyce, I don't relish that at all. It just adds one more layer to what I'm trying to navigate, which is, how do I stay in business and keep people in a positive frame of mind? How do I serve this community that is suspect on, are we open? How do we interact with you? But I want to do this thing, but I don't know if I should do this thing. And dealing with some social people saying, oh goodness, you should just shut down and stay at home. because of all the risks you're doing. So there's so many different things going on. I think I relish springtime coming and people saying, wow, I can use my bike, and I still relish getting people out onto bikes, especially those people that may have other challenges, where we use bikes or trikes, three-wheelers that are recumbent for people who have other health challenges that are really challenged by this time, that don't have a normalized way of getting outside and getting their bodies moving. To your point, Joyce.
I'm obsessed with getting my dad on a trike. Obsessed with it. My dad's in his 90s. He's super active. As I said, he's a retired coach. Yeah. And I can't believe I'm talking about this live. My mother took his bike away last year.
Oh, goodness.
He was on punishment.
Oh. You're in California?
He fell a couple of times. I mean, he wiped out pretty hard.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
And he's not driving anymore, but it's driving him crazy. And I keep saying a trike is the solution, right?
Right.
Yeah. Remind me where you are, Joyce.
I'm in New York, but my folks are in Florida.
Okay.
So Florida is the mecca for trikes.
It's a great option, right?
Yeah.
People.
It really is, and even in the blindness community, there's been some developments, of ways to help people ride not tandem. I've listened to several interviews and different things where people will just give directions and that kind of thing. But even in the recumbent trike area, and they're rather large. There are some great recumbent tandem options that are really comfortable. If you get them out on a trail, that kind of thing. So it's definitely a growing community.
Yeah, I just put in the chat there some links to 3 major vendors imported in the U.S. and I'm sure your father could, or yourself in Florida could find a number of places that sell one or more of those to get them out there. That was tremendous.
Put one in his driveway one of these days.
Yeah.
You can put one in your driveway?
In his driveway, yeah.
And the other thing to consider there, Joyce, is the aspect of electric assist, which, then blurs a whole nother line with car transportation substitution, when you can have an assist to help someone get someplace or take stuff. It really expands people's understanding of the use of the bicycle / tricycle in their community.
Jeffrey, if my internet browser did what it should have done, I'm on your website, and under your About tab, you've got some great pivots already here that I think people could really learn from. You've got some stuff about bike routes and some different things like that. And that's the kind of simple stuff that it looks like you've already done that people, especially in small towns, can be doing. You're in a much larger area, but that's the kind of stuff that we're struggling with, that people are having to think fast, and it's taken us a long time in the small towns to get some of that put together. Because we're more worried about, how to be able to socialize, because that's what we're used to doing. Right.
Well, I'd say the unintended consequence of all this is going to be outdoor activities and outdoor stores, whether it's REI or LL Bean or your local bike shop. So wherever you are, especially in Iowa, I know there's a lot of great local bike shops. I just don't know what the governor said there about the essential nature of them and how they're operating.
Now that you say it, I don't think I've heard anything. Like Bar Bike up in Des Moines, which is one of the big ones. I don't know as she said either way.
Yeah, in Michigan they were not designated, and I've got a friend there who hasn't been operating in 3 weeks, but he's just opened up his website. So, yeah, your point is fair there. It's probably one of the only local things that is still out there that is riding the fence between essential and some people might think it non-essential because it's just bike riding. But Joyce's point with the mental health and some of the other aspects with transportation, in New York 3 weeks ago, there was a number of articles in the Times about people flocking to bicycles and to the streets because they didn't want to take public transportation. So I would say, out there is to check in with your local shops and see what they're doing, see if they're, open, and, what opportunities they can provide for people to, get together.
Wouldn't that be a good opportunity, Jeffrey, to start promoting, biking versus public transportation for the future?
Yeah, we are, and that's on our radar. It just seems to be a little too early because most people besides medical professionals have no place to go, and construction is still essential. Automobile service, but unfortunately, these are not people who very easily look to the bicycle as transportation. It's really it's a long story going all the way back to after World War II with Eisenhower and interstates. And U.S. used to be a big pedestrian and bicycle country until highways came in and the automobile. So maybe we'll revert back to that the way that many European cities and much of Asia does with reliance on it. But it's a very long story about infrastructure that I want to, bore anybody with. There's certainly opportunities, and there's a lot of work to do to make it safe so that everybody on this call would say, oh yeah, I could do that. I could totally do that. I'm afraid right now people are saying, I'm a little wary, of doing that.
One of the things that I think might come out of this is bike sharing. I know that there's a company or a nonprofit that does bike share that communities can buy into, and there's an app, and they do some geofencing stuff. I really see them potentially being successful in this kind of situation once this is over, because like you said earlier, people digging old bikes out, that kind of thing. But for people that don't have bikes, I really think this could be an opportunity to discover something new. And as we go through community development, I can't help but think that some of those conversations are going to happen.
Yeah, that's the exciting part, to Tim's point about, getting excited about the future, for sure. And right now we're still in this present, which is, day-to-day thing is the fact of the matter.
One of the things that you mentioned, Jeffrey, was the people have nowhere to go. And as you're speaking, all I'm doing is just staring at this the dog with the red handkerchief on this bike, and I'm reading the ride bikes, have fun, feel good. So maybe they don't have anywhere to go, but maybe they need to feel good. And I always go with what the big boys are doing. What are the big boys doing? And they always create these days. What is it? Baskin Robbins, 31 flavors. They have ice cream day. Winchell's always creates donut day. I personally would probably create like a bike day where everybody, maybe they don't have anywhere to go, but they can go ride around the block for 30 minutes or just get out and show how they're feeling good.
Yep, there's National Bike Month, and there's Bike to Work Week, and there are all of those things. They've just
Bike for COVID-19.
Right. Well,
or against it. I don't know.
Yeah,
or against.
there's so many, the bicycle has been used for so many charitable organizations. Here in Massachusetts, they're the Pan Mass Challenge, which is, 70,000 riders. They've raised millions of dollars for years, and yet they are, it's fraught with peril right now because they don't know if they're going to be able to join, because you've got so many people in such a small space coming up and that's in August. And so,
and the same thing's going to happen for us. We've got Ragbri.
Right. Exactly.
That happens. It's the ride across Iowa, and we had Lance Armstrong show up one year. We've had all sorts of people that come from all over the world to do this thing, and the economic impact of that not happening has
it been canceled?
No, not that I've heard of.
Oh.
But I think that Ragbri, the Iowa State Fair, we've got some big stuff in our state that's right around the corner that I've had a couple conversations that, you know, they're not ready to chop everything, but they're close.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough for sure. Yeah, I was trying to see whether the Pan Math Challenge is happening. Not clear.
8035, the 8035 Music Festival got canceled in Des Moines. That's a big one. You know, I've got a friend that's done production work for that in years past, and it was so early in the summer they couldn't take the risk of getting everything planned and everything set up, and then having to cancel the whole thing.
Right.
And that's my concern for, like I said, Ragbri, you know, and even the state fair.
Dr. Jesse, one of the things that you mentioned is, first of all, I want to allow you another moment to talk about what you do and how you're able to assist nonprofits. But one of the things that I noticed that you mentioned earlier is that you focus less on the fundraising, whereas there are some who believe that now we need more funds, more help, more assistance now than ever.
Right, and so you're absolutely right. So when I could tell that we were maybe creeping towards a pandemic, because I knew the potential was there, I spent a lot of time talking to other nonprofits, you know, spent time on webinars, and everybody said keep fundraising going. But that advice was coming from major metropolitan areas. That advice was coming from people that worked with organizations that were more in the human service, human rights area. My clients, most of them don't. They work with other things. They work with art. They work with youth development, these kinds of things. And because we're in a small town, I did give the advice to one organization in particular that we not be doing direct donor asks, because we have a lot of people in our community that aren't working right now. Mm-hmm. And even the ones that are essential workers are seeing changes in their work schedule. They're seeing reduced hours. And so as a consequence, I'm working less, and in some ways working differently, you know, as a result of all of this. And so the fundraising will pick back up. But even some of the grant making organizations have said, you know, this could change. We had one application in particular, we were done, and the organization came out and said, you know, you can still apply, but just know if your project isn't related to COVID-19, you're probably not going to get funded.
That's tough.
Yeah.
It's affected the Costa Rica business we have. We are listed on auctions, all charity events all around the country, and that so the villa is at a lot of live auctions. So that was the majority of the business that we had. So that's affected that, you know, tremendously there too.
Yeah, Tim, on the commercial cleaning side, do you see, how are you going to approach that with post-COVID or in COVID, inter-COVID, you know, cleaning process? Is everybody going to be able to adapt to that? Do you think you're going to be able to meet the demand for all the serious cleaning aspects?
It's an interesting, because I mean, first of all, and when this first started to really break, it was people were hoarding chemicals, the proper chemicals to clean. And then people weren't using it the right way. I mean, when I was going into banks when this first started, and they're just taking a bottle of Windex or disinfectant and they're spraying and wiping, that's not the right way. You have to leave the chemical on for 1 minute at least. Mm-hmm. Some are registered 1 to 10 minutes or 1 to 5 minutes, you know, for it to be effective working. So it's an education process of how to teach people. We were fortunate to get some masks for our employees, and good thing my wife's not in the room, otherwise she would come in and jump in on this conversation. But because she ordered a bunch, when she saw this breaking in January, she ordered some N95 masks from Amazon. Mm-hmm. And I kept yelling at her about why all these boxes are piling in the door, but now I had to apologize for that. But so all our employees are masked and gowned and have gloves and that. So we are assuring that we're doing the proper procedures. So I think where we're trying to come across, it's more about educating people on proper cleaning, proper procedures, proper techniques, and that type of thing. And where we want to come from, like I said earlier, is we want to be able to provide a service just for peace of mind, because I have a hereditary heart condition. And so I look at it, if I was an employee and my company said, go back to work, and that what's the risk liability? You know, do I really feel comfortable going back to work? And I think that's a lot of conversations in the future they're going to have to come as we reopen.
Yeah.
Now, Tim, you mentioned that you were teaching people the correct way to clean. How did you go about educating? Did you create videos, share through social media, webinars? How do you start that process?
What we've done with our customers is we shared the CDC guidelines, and that is mainly what I'm trying to do is share it with our current customer base right now and our potential customers. We're sharing that information, and that we were on a 3-month backlog list to get a machine like they use in airplanes where they come through and spray and that. So that's been in demand and things like that. But supplies have been very hard to get. And that's something that's very alarming. Supplies first were not being, everyone was buying a lot and hoarding them. Now they're controlled more and you're not getting all your supplies. First, they were all going to the government buildings. Now all the supplies are going to medical facilities. And now manufacturers of the chemicals are having a hard time getting raw materials.
Right.
And that. So it's an interesting, going through this process now, even with just basic cleaning.
Very interesting. I have learned a lot from all of my guests today. We are coming down to the last few minutes of the show, and what I like to do at the end of every show is just allow my guests the opportunity to speak a few final words to people who are watching live, as well as people who are watching in the archives, and just really talk about what your message is today. So we're going to go ahead and start with Dr. Jesse.
Yeah. The big thing is we're going to get through this, and we're going to come out different than how we went in. And nonprofits and businesses are going to have all sorts of new solutions. The biggest thing is, and it's going to sound like I'm going to contradict myself a little bit, and maybe I will unintentionally, don't stop doing what you're doing, in terms of fundraising and volunteer management, but maybe find new ways, to do it and to answer that, or to not contradict myself. We're still talking to donors, but we're talking to them differently. And that's what nonprofits really need to do right now if you're not in like a human service or kind of an immediate need area. And businesses, I don't care what kind of business you are, take this time, learn a new skill, improve your website, do something to work on the business. You can't work in the business, work on the business.
Wonderful words of advice, Tim.
First of all, thank you for having me on today. It was a pleasure and honor with all you guys there. I mean, Jesse, with your give back, and Joyce with the walking. I'm going to go walk, and Jeff, I'm going to go dig out my bike. Okay, I promise you guys all that. And that big takeaway, I think, is look at opportunities. I'm always a big believer in staying positive and looking for opportunities that can improve not just your situation, but other people's situation. Educate and opportunities. Always keep that in mind.
Absolutely. Jeffrey, what do you have for us?
I think I'm going to keep my message simple, which is ride a bike, have fun, clear your head, stay safe, wear a helmet, and use the bike in the way that you might not have thought was possible. But it's a really wonderful invention, simple, and can take you places you never thought you could get to.
Absolutely. And then you'll feel good. Joyce.
Just echoing so much of what has been said. Jeffrey, I'm all about the biking. So yes, get out and dig out the bike for sure. Take care of yourself, stay safe at home. Don't take any unnecessary risk, but you do need to take care of yourself. And part of that is being sure that you are moving your body, because you need that not just for your body, but for your mind and your mood. There's incredibly important, valuable elements that come along with that. So stay safe at home, but don't do that in a way that is sacrificing your health and mental and emotional well-being.
Absolutely wonderful words of advice from our guest today. I want to thank you all for being today's guest on the Roundtable.
Thanks so much.
Thank
You are
you.
So much.
You are so welcome. And I want to thank you all for everyone who was watching this. Thank you for your support. And please support the show. Please share this video because our guests are giving up their time, their energy, their expertise to be able to help you. So share the show, support our guests. We have all of their websites in the links. Visit their websites, follow them on social media, check them out because they are here to help you. And if you are interested in being a guest on the Roundtable Talk Show, please visit the website at AskSharifa.com. I'll be back tomorrow at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Everyone have a safe and blessed day. Bye now.